2, we got some new things to talk about. You actually sent over some questions that people from your social media have asked you. So I wanted to touch on a bunch of these. And firstly, what is your ideal Staffy bull?
Let's see, it's probably different than what most people would think. For me, I look more, I want and one thing let me touch on, because I didn't last time, and I know Steve Stone, the founder, that, we talked a lot. He'd be rolling in his grave right now. He was a big advocate of, it's not a Staffy bull. It's actually a Staffordshire, so the correct term is Stafford. So it's a Staffordshire Bull Terrier, but Stafford is like the slang for it. So he was always a stickler for that. If he was talking to anybody and they said Staffy bull, and he'd always, tell me that that's not the way you say it, and him being the founder, but I just figured I needed to add that because, yeah, cause that's something that he always preached on and stuff, and unfortunately it's a slang that's kind of made its way where now it's common. Everybody uses it. But
so he was the founder?
Yeah. What's that?
You said he was the founder?
Yeah, so Steve Stone, he has a book out too. He's wrote several books, but he's now passed on. But he was the founder in Finland, and then I believe it was in the 60s he was one of the founders to get it over to the United States and the AKC to recognize the Staffordshire Bull Terrier. So he played a big part in that, and got all the dogs registered. And that's how, with my dogs, which is amazing. There was a lot of the Irish imported bloodlines and stuff, which is unique to my line specifically. Is some of those bloodlines were lost in Ireland and England and stuff because of the registries, whereas in Steve made the effort to keep the pedigrees and moved them directly over to the AKC. So like the dogs, Champion Psycho came from, my dogs go directly back to his ancestors and are registered and are in the AKC stud books and stuff. And it's thanks to Steve keeping those records and keeping them up to date to where it transferred right over. But he played a big part in that. He was a big, the advocate for the true Staffordshire Bull Terrier, which he probably wouldn't like the direction it's going in now, but he has a lot of good books out there.
So, is your ideal Stafford based a lot on what you've learned from him?
Yes, and just others. I've been fortunate to meet a lot of what I guess we call now old timers, which they probably don't want to be called that, but people that's been in the breed before me. Even there's just so many, from Intrepid staffs to Dynamite staffs to I knew Nancy with Yankee staff kennels, and Tompkins. He taught me a lot, and just a lot of people over the years, and people in Ireland as well. But they would tell me, and that's so my ideal Stafford. And then too, it's my preference, and they can come, they vary and stuff. But I like more one with an on and off switch. I tell people, I want it to be able to be calm and relaxed. I think this mentality everybody has in whatever breed it could be, from Malinois to American Pit Bull Terriers to Staffordshire Bull Terriers, is that super high drive, and some people like that, but for me, I like more of a calm, laid back, a confident, not cocky Stafford. So one that's he's not going to back down from a challenge, but he's not going to go picking fights either. I don't like a bully type, and bully in, both terms, I guess. I don't like him super bully, but also just like picking on other dogs, anything smaller, that's a turn off to me. If they, I won't keep a dog that doesn't like, pups and stuff. I just have standards like that. I like them to be obviously good with my kids and everything else, but easy keepers, not super destructive. You can get them pop up that way where they'll just want to eat through kennels and fences and everything else, but just kind of easy going, intelligent, willing to do whatever you ask of them and stuff, and just a tough, dependable dog that minds good obedience and stuff. Won't run off too much or anything like that. Kind of stays with you, and it's aware of its surroundings.
I understand.
Yeah, and there's different types and stuff. And when I was younger, I liked more the high strung. I don't, maybe because I was more of a kid and I thought it was just so cool. But as I got older, I realized, it wasn't the direction I wanted, and I could get one that was more laid back, and he'd still do everything the other dog did, and more, because he'd sit next to you and know how to chill out.
Gotcha. So, what is the Irish Staffordshire Bull Terrier? Because I actually, it's funny that was one of the questions, because that's actually been getting tossed around a lot on my video I did about the brief history of the Stafford way back in the day. What is the Irish Stafford?
Yeah, so that's that's something too, man. I see it's crazy. I'm glad it was asked as well, because it's really simple, and people make it so they look into it way too much. And now, just like the media now, they can push something, and then before you know it, idiots are doing it. Like, feeding gunpowder makes a dog game or something, and then some idiot will do it. But it's the same way the Staffordshire Bull Terrier. I hear all kind of stuff from it's pit bull, it's code for pit bull mixed in, which is the stupidest thing in the world. Because if you wanted code, why wouldn't you just call it a regular Staffordshire Bull Terrier? Whatever. And then I see other people that are on the other side. And I seen a post, and somebody was going on about the Irish Staffs were the rejects of they were the leftovers, the dogs that were no good that they sent to Ireland and blah blah blah, which again is bullcrap, because it's simple. All it was the breed originated in England. You could say was founded the KC. So the KC is the Kennel Club. They registered these dogs, and some of them were sent to Ireland, and they were worked, and they were game tested on badger, on fox, on each other, and the baddest ones they bred to each other, and the ones that didn't, weren't any good or didn't show any signs of what they were looking for, any gameness or grit or anything, they called. And it's as simple as that. It was, KC bred dogs, Staffordshire Bull Terriers, that were sent to Ireland, and they created a bloodline, simply breeding, the best of the best, working dogs, and that's what it is. So it's the lineage and it's the bloodline. And then today, it's not a look, it's not a type. It's, some people, look at it's the legs, it's long-legged, it's this, it's that. No, it's if you look at them, they were different shapes and sizes even then. Some were bullier, some did have leg, and that's where the characteristics started. And if you look at the foundation Staffordshire Bull Terriers, they were the functional ones, and they did, compared to today's dogs, you would say, looked like they had a little bit more leg on them, and they weren't as bully or nothing, and they were because they were functional, and so they just bred the best to the best, and that's an Irish Staffordshire Bull Terrier, and as simple as that. If they didn't come from Irish working lines, from two working dogs, then it's not an Irish Staffordshire Bull Terrier, and sadly, a lot of people have used this. There's some out there, and I won't say, but they've taken it upon themselves, let's just add pit bull because they want to go along with that. So that you have some bloodlines you have to be careful, because just like anything, you got a few bad apples that were people that maybe just ignorant and don't know, and they think, that's it because the media says that. It's not. It's a working dog. A Kennel Club dog that was just worked and selected purely on its workability. And it's simple, but it's not to a lot of people. For some reason, they can't grasp the concept of that.
Okay. So, while we're on that topic, does a dog's pedigree truly matter?
That's a good question. Yes and no. It does. The question I would ask more so maybe is who you got the dog from or who bred the dog, Mm-hmm. But yeah, the pedigree is important. I mean, if there's a bunch of trash in it, then obviously, and when I say trash, I shouldn't say that. If it's not from, working parents and working grandparents, then the chances of it actually being a good worker might be slim to none, and that goes with anything. If you want to do, wall climb or whatever, tug, sports and all that stuff, if the ancestors before it doesn't have a pedigree that matches that, then then you probably shouldn't fool with it. The chances of the percentage of you actually getting good workers out of it is slim to none. It's just the way I see it. So, but again, too, it's the dog and the individual that will make a pedigree great. So you kind of got to look for that. But the biggest thing I see is people, it has this dog in it 20 generations back or 15 or 10 or whatever. But I'm quick to ask, well, what was the mom and dad like? What were their parents like? And really, if you go back 3 or 4 generations and see who bred them, and that's the most important, because a lot of pedigrees out there, and people are saying, oh, it's Dublin Red, it's this, it's, they'll throw these Irish bloodlines out there. But again, it's so far back, and you got to look at it. Did they breed for what? And if they're just breeding to have a pretty pedigree, then it's no good. You don't know if I don't want to take my chances with it. But if you see who the breeders are and they've been around for a while and they, are real dog men, then and their pedigrees are the way they are, then I would definitely say you got you a good dog. It matters. Mm. I hope that makes sense. It's kind of a two-sided, answer to that, but it's it really just, it just depends. But when I started, again, it's I look at pedigrees. It's super important when I do my homework, but I also I look at other things. I look at the dog. So I needed to add new blood and stuff to my lines years ago, and so and you might not be able to find that one that's this and that. So you try to do your best. You try to look at the parents, ones that fit what I'm looking for, and then I try to do what I call, whatever I test mine for, and see what their grit and stuff is, and then from there, I decide if I'm going to use it in the program or not, and then to add some new blood that way.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. So, actually, this kind of just flows right along. What are your thoughts on the differences between sporting dogs versus working dogs?
That's a good question, because I think a lot of people get the two mixed up and they think it's the same, which, a sporting dog can be a working dog and a working dog can be a sporting dog, but it's different, So, generally speaking, you have the sporting side, so you could have a sporting dog is, and I'm just looking at what they generally do, the jumping and the running and the tug and hang time, wall climb, all that kind of stuff, treadmill. Well, you might have a working dog that won't run on a mill. Some of them don't like it. You got to hand walk them. Others, they're not tugging if their life depended on it. They're just not into it, and you got to they might have, maybe there's 6 or 7 things that a sporting Stafford needs to do that a working dog might only do 1 or 2, and that's enough for conditioning. But the working dog, and let's just base it on just, getting a fox, right, or a raccoon, okay? Well, that sporting dog might hang on that rope all day long, but, you get it after a raccoon, and that raccoon bites on its face, gets one good bite, and that dog's tuck and tail and running. It's a big difference. And vice versa. I have some dogs that just aren't into, the flirt pole maybe or whatever, or hanging from a rope, but you show them a hog and, 150-pound hog and 30 pounds of them, they're going straight for it, not scared, not nothing. So, there is a difference in it. And I think too many times people think that one carries over and it doesn't. And just because they might go after a hog doesn't mean it's going to, I like to say there's toy drive, and then there's more, game drive, I guess. There's different. So a lot of dogs are conditioned, they're selecting for dogs that have a lot of toy drive. They're going to go for something flickering and flashing, which most dogs will, but in general, that's kind of what they're going for, where, a working staff, I could care less if it's going to hang from a rope for how many long. You could say, it tests maybe it's bite or it's jaw strength or whatever. I don't know. A dog is interesting. They're not really going to use their full force on some things unless it's, a serious animal. I got one male, man, he's a hard biter. I'd never thought about it never really realized it until you actually work them. And he got on a raccoon. And one of the only ones I've had that just crush a raccoon's skull, man. He just a hard bite, grab its head and crush it up and kill it quick. But yeah, he'd hang him from a rope and stuff, but I never knew his bite was that hard. And it goes for all of it. And then the sporting side, like I said, you could get one that chase a lure, chase whatever all day long, but when it gets into a hole or something with a groundhog or whatever, it might turn and just run, when it gets bit on the face, and not want no part of it.
I gotcha. So go into detail a little bit on some of the breeding practices where there might be a difference in breeding practices between working breeders and show breeders.
All right, yeah. So, like, for me, the most important for me is, of course, health and temperament and stuff like that. But let's just say all that checks out, and the dog's great on that. Then I look for it more of selection. Where the sporting side, they'll condition one early on, and again, a lot of it is training and a lot of it's genetics. I'm a breeder, so I focus more on the genetic side of it. But if I want one good at sports, I'm going to start early on getting it, chase the flirt pole, and a lot of this stuff, maybe because I don't introduce my dogs early enough on. I do some, but, all of them, they're pretty much well-rounded. I can work with them enough and get them the drive up. Whereas a sporting breeder, you might want one a little bit more high-strung. I've noticed a dog that's more amped, typically will go for something, a prey, think of it like a terrier, where they're always, you see a rat, they're jumping, or they're bouncing off the wall. Those type of dogs, I've noticed, seem to do better with the sporting side of it. And it's mainly that just instinct, just boom, to go chase anything. With the working side, that doesn't matter. You can still get those dogs that are good workers, but I guess you're looking more at the toughness, the grit, the gameness of them to see if they're willing to quit, when pressure's given to them, because it's part of nature, whereas the breeding of it, you're breeding against it. So anything in general, it's weird with working dogs, and you want them to stay in there in the fight, even if they're losing. You know what I mean? With a raccoon or whatever, if they're defending the chickens or whatnot, the hog, you don't want them to give up, even if they're getting pounded and beat up. Where you can't really test that in the sport. People, I know they argue and maybe whatever, but the dog can quit at any time. But is it really? I don't know. But as far as the selection process, I like to think it's a little bit different, because you're only basing that on the toy drive and the willingness to keep hanging on to a toy, where I found some, and intelligent dogs, I'll probably get in trouble for saying this. I'm not saying that the sporting dogs aren't intelligent, but in general, sometimes I got smart dogs that will look at me and like, okay, what do you want me to do with this tug? You know, what do you want me to do? But when they see an animal and it's game on, you know, they know exactly what to do, and it's no question. And obviously, even those dogs I can get to hang or do a flirt pull or whatever. It's just they're doing it to please me and not, you know, just because. You know, which I like. I mean, for example, my kid. Say it's a crazy ball drive, right? You're throwing the ball. My daughter picks the ball up. I want a dog that's smart enough to know, leave my daughter alone. You're not going to snatch it out of her hand. Where some of these real sporty, drivey dogs would mow the kid over today, and I don't think that's part of the breed. You know, you got to be careful of it. And I know there's people out there that don't do this. So I'm not saying anybody in particular. I'm just thinking. From what I've seen, you know, or a tug, you know, see if you can hand it to your kid, or would you hand a rope to your kid and see if that dog will just mow them over to get to that, or would they be smart enough to realize I'm not going to snatch it out of her hand? But you got to be careful, because a lot of times that real crazy wild sport drive type that. And again, you can have both. So you can breed a calm dog that's still sporting. So I want people to understand that, because I got plenty of people that get dogs from me that do sports, and they do great with it. But it's more of a controlled, intelligent process, and it's mainly the way you train them. Where some are a little bit easier to train, where maybe you can just dangle something in front of them, where the others, they need to understand, you know, once they do it, you praise them, even if they do a bad job, even if they don't jump as high as you want, if they don't, you know, a Staffordshire Bull Terrier is really big on the human interaction, and that alone kind of pushes their drive and at least gets them started to that, you know, that they're doing something that you want them to do.
Okay, I gotcha.
Yeah.
What do you prioritize when you're selecting a breeding pair?
The main thing is, you know, health and temperament, you know, which we know that. I'm just going to say it again, because there'll be somebody on here that will comment something like that. But, you know, it depends on my goal, what I want to improve or lock in or keep going, you know. The easiest way is mainly the ideal situation would be I look for the same type of things, you know, like to like. I try to get the same temperament. If I can get the same calm temperament and I know they're good workers or good just, you know, good dogs in general with an on and off switch, then that's what I like to breed, you know, pair together. Now in a situation where I'm trying to improve something like that, obviously I would get one, you know, maybe it's a little lazy or something, you know, that maybe I do want to use a dog that's a little bit more higher energy, high strung to put in there and to see if I can get a dog that's not, you know, not as lazy. And lazy by no means, these dogs aren't lazy, but some of them, as far as I guess the activities and the stuff that you do with them, you know, they might not, you know, want to chase the ball all the time, or, you know, they do. I guess that's a bad example, but they're just a little too laid back and reserved for what, you know, that balance. I try to get that balance out. A dog that's an all-around that will do anything, catch frisbee, you know, do all that and still go out, you know, and hunt.
Okay. Now, when you're breeding, do you skip heat cycles? Do you breed all in a row? What's your take on that?
You know, I've read a lot of studies on it, and I know, you know, I've talked to a lot of old school breeders and stuff, and even veterinarians and such. But you know, I skip heats, but saying that, I wouldn't be scared to breed back to back if it's a healthy female, and again, and it's why, you know, why are you doing it? And that's what, is it because the dog's getting older and you're not going to have the chance, or is it because you have one male that's getting, the male's getting older, so you need to, get that breeding in, or it didn't, I don't know the situation, but there probably is a situation where you want to do that. And in that case, I don't think there'd be a problem with it. I think it's fine. If you look at the studies that they do, and it makes sense, if she's already whelped, her body's already ready. I've heard it actually is worse if you wait a cycle, because they tighten all the way back up, and they, all this other stuff, to where it's just going to be more it could be complications the next time. No, and no, people don't take that and run with it. I'm going to breed back to back for that. And some of them, it's rough for pregnancy. Some of them, their hair will come out, the same stuff happens to women that have children, if you really look into it. But, and even them, they can be fertile and have babies immediately after having a kid. They can, when they do have, so the body knows, but, wolves have them. In the wild, they breed whatever, but now they do 12-month heat cycles. And again, that's another thing too. If you got a female that maybe she's having a heat every 10 months, all this stuff is something to take in consideration, and how healthy the mother is. But in general, I always skip a heat, even though I don't think it's probably the best. I'll be honest with you. I think it'd probably be healthier to go back to back, but the ridicule, the public does with stuff like that. I just, and I don't have a reason to. I keep something from it. The way I see, if I can even skip it to where it's a year, it would give me more time to actually see what the offspring is turning out, and if it's worth a repeat or worth using that male or stud again, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. You've mentioned, the possibility of using outside blood if it matches with yours. How many of those camps have you actually found that you would consider?
Not many. That's the problem. Nobody, and again, I don't know, people probably didn't know who I was not long ago, but not many people out there with I guess, my standard, Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying they don't have standards, but and I used to, I guess, put more faith in people, where I would ask, all these breeders when I was young, I said, they, me and my brother would analyze the pedigrees and be like, this is why, because the dog was so good at this, or was weight pulling and da-da-da, so they must have half brother, half sister because of that, and blah, 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 right? Well, then talk to them, fast forward to I'm, 30 years old, and I get a chance to talk to them, or and they're like, oh, that was an accidental breeding and stuff. And it's like, that popped that bubble, But if I'm always looking, because I always want to find, something that, because you can only go in yourself, your own bloodline so much, so tight, before you do need an outcross. And I got to where I try not to worry about it. I'm always kind of keeping an eye on it. I know the bloodlines pretty well, so I can kind of look at the pedigrees. And like I said before, it's really not even that. It's the breeder. And if the breeder has the same, the dogman has the same understanding as me, and has the same, I guess, standards as me, then, I'm all for it. But there's only a handful out there that I've noticed. I'm probably I would say I'm the only, person in the United States breeding proper, Staffordshire Bull Terriers, as far as the idea of actually having some kind of criteria to I hunt. I love hunting, but I do that to determine, to select. I do it for selection, and that's it. They're selected at home. I see which ones get along with my children, my other animals. They're not bullies. They're not trying to kill puppies. They're not, all this. They get the rats, in the barn. They, they do their job. They can get the raccoons, they can catch hog, and then still, then you still factor in conformation and stuff. They're not so bow-legged or out of whack that they can't walk or run. That's the function, the movement, the structure, and all that together. And good mothers. That's a big part. I've found some bloodlines in the past that I like, and I start diving in more, and I'll find the mothers eat the babies, or the mothers kill their babies, or they're, and again, who knows the whole situation? Maybe they're not keeping them, the husbandry is not right, or they're getting them too close to other dogs. Mama dogs want their privacy, but again, in general, that, or you find a stud dog maybe that fits, and then you start listening. Oh, he's a really good, and then you find out all the cleft palates he's producing, and they act like that's normal. I've never had a cleft palate puppy. Not that I've had a whole bunch of litters, but Dynamite Kennels, I'm friends with him, and he's told me he's never had one, and the Dynamite's been around since the 60s, so you can imagine, you start to wonder, is it the bloodline, and do I really want to add something like that into my line? And then there's other situations where, excuse me, I find one that I think's acceptable, and then I start asking those other questions like, how old were the parents, and how old are they? And you start finding out the longevity is not there. They're dying at 10, 11 years old, which isn't terrible, but I've got some that lived to 14, 15 years old and stuff. And then you start, so there's so many standards I've set for myself over the years, to where now I don't want to settle, and I'm actually in a worse place, because I'm fearful of adding something and then bringing something negative, because you got to think of that both sides. You're quick to seeing all the good stuff. Look at this dog, he's a good worker, he's X, Y, and Z, and then you bring something over that you don't want. And a lot of people will lie to you. They won't tell you. That's why you gotta. It's sad. They're going to tell you every positive, and then tell you later, oh yeah, by the way, he has seizures, or he gets allergy shots because he has skin issues. You never told me that before. Why does his son have this? I can guarantee that anything I breed does not have issues, and that I have years of before me in my bloodline that I can tell you what food they ate, they didn't, this X, Y, and Z. So that's important. And then when you're trusting the years that I've spent in it, and what I've done to somebody, just their word, it's kind of hard to. And so it depends on what kind of guy they are in person, and what they've done, and if they're passionate, and they know. And some people don't know. I had tons of people that come to me and they tell me, look at what I got, and I'll be honest with you, I'm like, I want to tell them that's the biggest peddler in the game. Why on earth did you buy something from them? It's crazy, but and they're gonna, of course they told you that. Why wouldn't they told you? They wanted to make a sell to you,
Right.
But when I do snatch those dogs up when I can, and I kind of I have a process that I usually don't post those publicly. I just try them out for myself, and if they make the grade, then they might show up on I might brag on them a little bit or whatever. But then if they don't, I'll get rid of them from my program. I won't use them.
So, you sent me a photo a while back of tricolored puppies, and holy shit, I'm a sucker for just that pattern. But on that topic, what are your thoughts on color and color genetics and dilutes and all these other things?
Yeah, I would, obviously color's cool, don't get me wrong. And this day and age, when we know a lot of the folklore and stuff, so like originally with the black and tan, I've heard stuff where they thought it was they have Manchester Terriers, they have White Terriers. They thought it was more from a different terrier that wasn't maybe as tough as, say, a White Terrier. And so if you had anything mixed in with that, then it wasn't pure, or it wasn't the better stuff, or it wasn't game, or, so on and so forth. And Same goes with liver. I had a book, an old book. I wish I could give anything to find it. But and maybe I made this up and dreamed this up, but I heard at one time early on some of the liver dogs weren't game, so they stricken it from the standard. But just to touch base on the colors, so you can have pretty much like the pit bulls. You can have black, white, brindle. Hides, you can have the blue dog, which is controversy. People really get into the dilutes. And then the liver is like a red nose, right? So that actually, I had a dog off of a liver once. I seen a liver dog years ago, and the gentleman who bred it said it was the best, one of the toughest staffs he's ever bred, so it pops up. I think people were so scared of it back in the day, they called them or they didn't talk about it when it came up, but it is part of the breed, and my thing with the day and age where, what difference does it make if it's part of the breed? It'd be different if it was a Merle or something, right? That's not part of the breed. I've seen people trying to pass staffs off as that. There's just no way. That's just genetically impossible. But as far as a liver, red nose, or a black and tan, it does come up. They're trying to. A lot of people, you have two types: people that don't care, and you have the other people that are trying to rid it from the breed bloodline altogether. They're trying to literally, they're now with the DNA kits and stuff. You got idiots that are either breeding for it, or you got the other ones that are trying to breed it out, which I will fear that, because genetics are very interesting. And I think, I could talk all day on this color, really. I think the color gene isn't, you're losing a lot of other, who's to say certain genes aren't connected to color, I don't know. I'm not a geneticist or anything like that, but I will tell you, and I'm against the whole, I don't care. Any dog is a good dog can be any color. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And I see so many times people are one way or the other with it, but where was I going with that? I was going to say crud, I lost my train of thought.
That happens.
Yeah. So like with the black and tan and stuff, you have, shoot.
Now, for the black and tan, does that? Well, okay, not the black and tan, but are there regular?
So the tricolor. So technically, there's no such thing as a tricolor, so they can have white, right? Mm-hmm. Oh, and so for example, white. So if you really talk to a lot of the Staffordshire Terrier people, they say there's no such thing as a black dog. And so they're basing it totally on genetic. And if you really want to go further, there's no such thing as a white dog, because white technically covers up colors. So it's not even a color. It masks a blue dog or a red dog and then technically there's not such thing as a blue dog, because it's really a black dog or a brindle dog that's diluted, So you have so the colors are weird, it's really different, but the stereotype that's brought with them, like I see a lot of people, they're really on this hate train with blue. Now, I personally I'm not a dilute fan, okay? If I had my pick in colors, I like some of the wild brindle colors. That, a lot of them I think are lost because there's so many variations. Every brindle dog is different and unique. And I love me a good red dog. I like any of them, right? Mm-hmm. But I'll never forget Ken telling me this from Intrepid Staffs once. When I was a young kid looking to get a pup from him, I wanted a red dog at the time, and I said, I want a red pup, blah blah blah, out of this litter. And he said, all right, and then so the dog had puppies, and I said, I want a red puppy. And he looked at me and he said, I tell you what do you want, the best puppy? Because I kept saying, I want a good puppy, I want the best puppy, I want a red puppy, and he said, do you want the best pup in the litter, or do you want the red puppy in the litter? And that really struck home to me then. And and I tell everyone, and sometimes that red puppy is the best one, but at the end of the day, too many times I get people telling me I want the best or I want X, Y, and Z. And then when I tell them it's this dog, then suddenly they have a color phobia, or they have a preference, they want this other color. And I'm like, you want to spend 13, 14, years taking care of a dog? I get it. You like a certain color, but if it's a color you like and it turns out to be not what you want, then you'll probably end up hating that color at the end of its life, when it's all said and done. So, the blue and working lines is like in the show, maybe not the show lines. I shouldn't say that, because the show people hate blue too. And so if they've done studies, and I've been seeing it around a lot lately, and it's like, what was it, like 94% of the registered dogs in the kennel club in the UK are blue. So 94%. But I look at it differently. I think of, that's what pet people are buying. Not real dog people. But that's what sells, and that's what peddlers are doing. They're selling blue dogs to these people. And so, but it doesn't say that all blue dogs, if anything, that percentage, there should be a few good blue ones out there. If there's 94%, then let me touch too on skin problems, okay? And I hear it a lot. It's like, oh, well, blues there's some genetic bull crap people try to push down people. And maybe it's probably real, right? But I've had a lot of dogs. I actually had a blue come out of my stuff not too long ago, which is so crazy to me, because if I wouldn't have bred it myself, I would have sworn it wasn't for my line. And then I started doing some genetic testing, come to find out, one of the first dogs I was using I was a blue carrier. I was line breeding, tight breeding to him, grandfather, granddaughter, stuff like that, and still never got blues. But I had small litters, and it was just, and that's how it is. And people don't realize it. It's all, when the recessive genes are like that, you don't know what you're going to get. But anyways, so I got some blue dogs. Where I'm going with this is, I've had lots of dogs, all kind of colors, and I've seen skin issues over the years. I've gotten rid of those dogs from my breeding program, but it was not just one color. It was a bloodline. It was genetic. It was, so where I'm going with that is, these blue dogs, if people have skin problems with them, it could be a number of things, but the main thing probably is because somebody sees dollar signs, and so they're breeding for a blue dog. So there's two dogs in the litter. Maybe it's blue. Blue one has skin problems, but heck, let's breed it because we're going to get money for it. So, which happens all the time, even in the show world. It's a prettier dog. It has the, prettier look, but the temperament's trash or whatever, and they're still going to breed to it, So that you got to consider. And again, I'm not no blue expert, but I've had a lot of dogs over the years, and I've seen skin issues, not in just, blue. And my blue dog that I have, that I kept from a litter, I have not seen any skin problems whatsoever with her. So, that tells me right there, I don't know. And again, it goes back to the breeder. What is it selecting for? Is it selecting for color? Is it selecting for a look? And because that's the problem. And I see so many the wars back and forth. And then so they're like, oh, look at the percentage. 94% is this. I think it was like 0.7% or 0.07% was black and tan, and I would assume a liver. So does that mean we should breed more liver, more black and tan? Like, that's just stupid to think that way either. The bottom line is, if you breed for healthy stock, it shouldn't matter the color. And that's the problem. You run into it. It just goes back to the breeder. It's just crazy. These breeders that are breeding just blues, the problem is they're just doing it for self-gain. They're doing it for money. But to touch on that, so I had a litter, right, and some more blues popped out. And I had some people writing me for a while, telling me they want the best dog for these sports. I'm going to do this, X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, I got a litter. This is a perfect litter for you. Well, lo and behold, I had like 4 blues. And talking about a curse for a working, more of a working old school line to get. Suddenly it turned into, oh no, I'll take any puppy but the blue ones. And I'm just like, really? Are you serious? This is going to be the best puppy for what you want. So they ended up not getting one, and the funny thing is they got one later on that was, a different color. But for somebody else. But again, and then black and tan seems to be more of a, the tricolors are more popular because a lot of like the Sorrel's dogs, the pit bulls, it's in the blood. So, and again, I think it goes on to who you are. Maybe an old school pit bull guy is not going to get a blue dog because that's just, ingrained in his DNA that blue dogs are no good, But yeah, it's weird, man. And then the black and tan, they seem to be accepted more in the working line. Me personally, I don't care. I want the best puppy out of the litter, and so I don't see that. But and then too, blue, there's Champion Psycho. He was a blue staff, he was blue, and he was like a 4-time winner. So, this is back in the day, whatever. So the whole stereotype that a blue dog isn't any good, and then what's interesting, and we're talking about Irish lines right now. So these same people that are cutting it down, there were, Champion Red Joe. He was a black and tan carrier because he sired black and tan puppies, and he sired blue dogs. So, blue fawns and stuff. And then one of the foundation dogs from the Staffordshire Bull Terrier world was Fearless Joe. He was a blue dog. He was a blue fawn. So, and then, a lot of people argue this and whatever. Again, it goes back to what's your reason for breeding and why are you doing it, and if you're just breeding to make, sell puppies and stuff, then I don't know. People should be careful. Mm-hmm. But the color, man, I'm trying to think. There's just so much, controversy and stuff on it. And then you have the people that are fake that will tell you, I don't care. I just want a good dog. The color does matter to them, it really, and I get it. A lot of people, they can't get past that, and they're wanting to get a dog that they love and they're passionate about and so on. But at the end of the day, I mean, would you rather have a color or a good dog,
Yeah. See, I'm spoiled. I would want both, but it's
and for your situation, yeah.
Right.
Wait for the right one. And I have people that will call me up and say, "Hey, I'm looking for this, and I want it in that." And then I'm like, be patient, man. But a lot of times it's funny. I'll call him up later, and I mean, sometimes it's literally like, 6 months later, and say, "I got it for you." And you know what they say? "Oh, sorry, man, I couldn't help myself." And they got another dog that's not even what they wanted, they asked for, and then they're telling me all the problems it has and this and that. And I'm like, dude, you couldn't wait, but it's just people. That's just how they are. They're constantly looking, and they can't, they don't have patience. And that's what I tell people a lot of times, just kind of wait. Tell me what you're looking for, and I'll tell you if I have something, and if I don't, I'll let you know when I do, or check you back with me, and see. Because, and I do tell some people I shy them away, because if they're real advocate, real into, I only want this or I only want that, then that's fine. But don't come to me telling me your main goal is the best dog, or this dog for this, because I might not get that exact, I have different litters. Sometimes they're more for sporting. Sometimes they're more for working, not all of them are going to be the same.